This is Grace Notes. I'm Alan Button, and I'm pleased to welcome to the studio today Vicki Dolan. Vicki is the founder and executive director of a nonprofit organization called Children's Playroom. And more specifically, it's Children's Playroom of Lancaster County. And that would be Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Children's Playroom is a reflection of Vicki's early personal circumstances as well as her professional experience. What she says in discussing different styles of parenting, like so many other matters of judgment and preference, is eat the chicken and throw out the bones. In many respects, her views on parenting represent the opposite of what she experienced during her own difficult upbringing, and she credits her grandmother, her third-grade teacher, and her mother-in-law for the life-changing affirmation and guidance that's grounded her for decades now. We'll talk in just a minute or two here about how Vicki happens to be in the studio today, but Vicki, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
One of the connections Vicki has with us is that she is the mother-in-law of the producer of Grace Notes, Christina. And that means, of course, by the way, that we have met before. We've had occasion to see each other in the past. It's great to have you here, visiting this week in North Carolina, as I understand it.
It's so wonderful to be here. I get to see Christina, and I get to see our newest grandson, JJ.
I understand JJ is number 8 of your 8 grandchildren.
That is correct. He is the youngest.
You have 3 children?
That's correct. 2 boys and a girl.
If we could, let's have you start just by telling us a little bit about your background, where you grew up and how you got into Children's Playroom.
I grew up in central Pennsylvania, and I always have loved children. Even growing up, it was always being a babysitter, always loved to be involved with children. And then as my life progressed and I became an adult and had my own children, when they went to preschool, I was asked to be a preschool teacher in their preschool. Then I had our youngest son, Andrew. He was 10 years behind the other 2. So I stayed at home with him. And at that point, I had been asked continually to volunteer in an agency that my husband's boss's wife ran. And what they did was they had girls come to get their GED. And I went in and I watched the children. So as I was volunteering, they asked me to lead a discussion on teaching how to pick a preschool. So I did that.
Now, let me jump in here a minute because I detect that there was a subtle shift in your focus. You started out talking about teaching preschool and then had a session on how to pick a preschool, and that, of course, is oriented toward parents' decision-making, and now you're getting involved in working with parents. Did I figure that out?
Exactly. How did this all happen? It's exactly right. I started with children, and then I evolved into parenting and parent education. And what had happened when I had my own children is I felt that parent education was so important. As a parent, I read every parenting book that came across. And some of the things that I read, I thought, wow, this is great. Some of the things I read, I thought, I am not going to use that at all. And being raised in a home with hitting and yelling and swearing, I knew that this was not a way I wanted to raise my children. So it really seemed like natural to go to support these parents, from the single parents getting their GED to other parents who maybe were new in a community or maybe felt isolated. Often after you have a baby, you know no one and you are very alone. And that is how this all evolved, with a director now of this agency saying, I want to take these parenting discussions. Like, look how much the parents learned about picking a preschool. Let's do parenting discussions in communities. Yet it has to involve the children. So what is unique is that parents must attend with their child to Children's Playroom. And there they have some playtime. They have some interaction. They have, we have cell phones connected to our hips all the time. Here is a place where they can go and they can just play. They can read to their children because that's so important. And I always want to let the parents know that play is your child's work. And children get very tired when they play. But that is so important for a parent to understand, that play is important. And so we have a first hour of just this play, reading, interacting with our children. And then we have a second hour where we bring in a parenting discussion.
Let me jump in. You've identified a song here that has some relevance to what motivates you. Greatest Love of All. Tell us about it. What is it that's special about that?
I feel that our children give us so much unconditional love. Although it's difficult, parenting is the hardest job you'll ever have. And yet I feel so strongly that children are our greatest love, and they give us love. And as parents, we need to give them love back.
I believe the children are our future is how it starts out. Song pretty well known by Whitney Houston.
And who can't believe that children are our future? We have our children, and we have hopes and dreams from infancy through adulthood, and they are the greatest love of all.
Let's hear the song, Greatest Love of All by Whitney Houston.
I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they
That was Greatest Love of All by Whitney Houston. If you're just joining us, our guest today is Vicki Dolan. And Vicki, boy, what a song.
I get chills whenever I hear this song. It just reminds me how important it is to be good models for our children. We have expectations of what we want for our children, but what are we modeling for them?
Before we went to the song, you were talking about the programs that you employ with Children's Playroom. If you would, back up and tell us a little bit about the establishment of the nonprofit itself. I understand from our conversation before we came into the studio that there were funding issues at one point.
Yes, when I worked for the agency that I volunteered for and then opened up a center in our town, I had a very small doctor's office and I had a very large waiting room where the children would be. So when I advertised this in the paper 1 day a week, I had over 33 phone calls and totaled over 70 children that would be attending. Well, obviously that wasn't going to work for 1 day a week. I immediately panicked and was blessed to go to my family, my sister in particular, who was head of the outreach program at the local church in town. And I said, what am I going to do? And she said, as part of our church's outreach, bring Children's Playroom to the church. So I did, and that was 20 years ago. We're still at the church.
Literally 1998?
1998, yep. I ran this program under what now was the name ParentWorks. And then United Way, as anybody who's been involved with United Way, they're just so supportive and wonderful, but they only can give as much as they get. And this particular year, they had to cut some funding. So within ParentWorks, they cut their funding back so much that all community-based programs had to be pooled. So when my families heard that we would be closing Children's Playroom,
that's what you were told.
That's what I was told, yes. Uh-huh. And our families became a community within a community, became close-knit. Through our discussion period, they get very close. Then they had young children. They were saying to me, what can we do? We need to continue this agency in our community. I said, well, let me see. So
you told me before we came into the studio about a red stoplight.
Something that changed my life was a mom. I was actually at a red light, first in line. She was behind me, and she got out of the car, and she said, Vicki, I don't know what it's going to take. You need to get this program back up. We need this parent support and education so badly. And I said, I'll see what I can do, but it will not be a free United Way agency. Will you be willing to pay? She said, I will call everybody and we'll get a group that I know will be willing to pay. So I went home to my husband and he said, I can help you work on getting your own nonprofit agency, which was very scary to me. This was not a dream I ever had to have my own nonprofit agency. But I did feel that I was being led. It became my passion. It became my ministry to help parents become the best parents they could be. None of us are perfect parents, but we can always better ourselves. And I wanted to be a part of that to change the future of the world.
So you became an entrepreneur along the way.
Yes, I did.
It takes a lot to pull together an organization like that.
Yeah. And I had the help of the church who was willing to, for 1 year, do payroll for us and taxes and do all of that.
Tell us a little bit more about the programs themselves.
I have a curriculum that I have developed. In the year 2010, my staff all became certified positive discipline parent educators through a woman named Jane Nelson, who has written many parenting books. And I have taken much of my curriculum from Jane Nelson, yet the most important thing to do when we come into discussion is check in. How are you doing today? Are there any concerns? What has gone on in your week? And we address those first.
This is a discussion between the parents.
Correct. It's very confidential, only parents and a staff member. And we lead. It's a facilitation, yet it is a discussion. It is not a lecture for the parents. They're not there to be lectured. They're there to try to better their world, to become the best parents they can become, to learn more about the daily raising of their child. And they might have come when their child was 1. Now their child is 2. And now their child is perhaps saying no to a lot of things and throwing the temper tantrums. And they're like, who is this child? This isn't the child I've had for the last 2 years. What can I do? And help me. And we will introduce tools as to sometimes when they're throwing these temper tantrums, they need a hug. They don't need a lot of words. They might just need a hug. And even to go up to your child when they're throwing that tantrum, and as crazy as this sounds, to say, I need a hug, calms everything down.
I gather these sessions, they're interactive, and so parents are learning from one another as they share things.
That is really what makes Children's Playroom a success, or any parenting group. And I so encourage other parents who are listening through their church, through their local community, maybe through their Chamber of Commerce, to try and start a program that includes the children and the parents. It is definitely interactive. It's where we get our support. It's how we get our support.
And it goes back to your primary mission of education and support of parents.
Absolutely.
Tell us about this next song that you've identified, Vicki.
Well, because I believe that we really are a part of God's great big family. We are the world. And if a difference is to be made in this world, we need to start with our children. And we need to get into their world and understand that we all are children of this world. And that's why I love this song.
Well, let's hear it. We Are the World by USA for Africa.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one.
This is Grace Notes. I'm Alan Button, and our guest today, if you're just joining us, is Vicki Dolan. Vicki is the founder and executive director of a nonprofit organization called Children's Playroom of Lancaster County. Vicki, you have another program, I understand, that is focused on single moms. What is that about?
That is correct. It started with 3 girls, and we meet in the evening. And these girls are all, the thing they have in common, they could be between 18 and 28. They are all single moms, and they are all doing their best to try to find work and raise their children. And I don't know if I have a passion for this, because my own mom was 15 when she had her first baby and continued on to have 5 children and really could have used some parenting skills.
You're one of 5.
Yeah, I am one of 5. And my parents were, married very young. So this became near and dear to my heart. Also, the church at that particular time, and still does, provide a meal for us. So the girls come with their children and we eat together and we follow the same format. And while our parenting discussion is similar, the needs and the struggles of our single moms are somewhat different. than the mourning families that attend. So we address what is the most difficult thing they're experiencing at this moment. And their lives change like every week. So the support becomes a bigger part of this program. And the education is 15 or 20 minutes of the hour and a half that we meet.
What a great model, bringing single moms together who have certainly things in common, but also you obviously treat them depending on their individual circumstances, but they've got the support of one another and an opportunity to learn how to handle some of those common challenges.
Yes, and it's beautiful to see they become connected. They do not know each other when they start, and they are just now best friends throughout the years. I mean, my program only goes for children ages to 6, and yet we had a reunion last year, and all these teenagers came back, and the moms were still connected. So it's beautiful to see that we are hopefully changing the world and making it a better place.
You've identified another song for us that I know has special meaning to you personally and is a good song by way of wrap-up. Unfortunately, we're a bit short on time, but I would like you to tell us about this song, Love Be With You.
Love Be With You is sung by Steve Courtney, who is a local artist in our community. And this song became very important to my youngest son and myself. We would go to Steve Courtney concerts and listen to Steve Courtney. And one day he played Love Be With You. And I looked at my son and I said, this is our song. And when my son went to leave for college, Love Be With You became the song. And when he was deployed, he stood in our office and we played Love Be With You.
Your son, this son is in the military now.
He is. Okay. And he came home before a deployment. And I said, I think we ought to play our song. And, here he is, 22 years old, and letting me hold him in my arms and play Love Be With You. And then when he got married, he surprised me. He never asked me what our mother-son dance was going to be. He never asked what I wanted. But when I got up to dance that dance, lo and behold, it was Love Be With You. And I hope that you all listen to this song and realize that our children, they are the future, and that we always can leave our love with our children. And I hope love will be with you.
What more can we say, Vicki? Great introduction to the song. I do want to say, however, thank you very much for being with us. It's been a real treat to have you here today.
Thank you for letting me share my passion and my ministry. I feel very fortunate to be able to do that.
Let's go out with the song by Steve Courtney, Love Be With You.
Another day passes by. Another memory is made. Love me with you, my friend, till we meet again.
You've been listening to Grace Notes, a special program here on Life 103.1 featuring people who may be relatively unknown, but who meet life's challenges in ways that brighten the lives of those around them. Our producer is Vicki Dolan. I'm Alan Button, and we invite you to join all of us here at the station again next Friday at 5:30 for Grace Notes on Life 103.1.